Something happened to us last fall while we were getting ready to cruise out of Fort Lauderdale. Now, we haven't talked about this a lot, but I think it is really important we have the discussion, especially for anyone that is cruising out of Port Everglades. Hey everyone, what is up? My name is Jordan and this is JJ Cruise. Thank you so much for clicking the thumbnail today and watching the video. You might have just stumbled upon one of the most cruise-obsessed YouTube channels out in the world. If this is your first time, thank you so much for joining us. We are on the road to 30,000 subscribers, so we definitely invite you to hit that subscribe button and join the crew. Be a part of the first 30,000 JJ Crew. Be a part of JJ Crew history. Also, don't forget to hit the like button. The like button does tell YouTube that you like what you see and you want to see more videos like these. Let's get into it. Today's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be more of storytelling. I do want to just tell the tale of what happened to us at Port Everglades because I do think that it's important. And at one point, I did believe that Jared and I were going to get arrested and miss our cruise, which ultimately that would be the worst thing. So this happened to us last October. We were getting ready to sail on Royal Caribbean's newest ship at the time, the Odyssey of the Seas. We had flown in the night before our cruise. We stayed at an embassy suites close to the port. And the next morning we woke up so excited to see this new ship. Of course, we were getting ready to film and just have a great week of doing stuff for the channel. Now, when we normally go to the port, we'll either take a cruise shuttle that is offered by the hotel, or we will utilize a ride-sharing app. You know, those are the apps on the phone where you can order a car to your hotel, they'll come and pick you up, and they'll take you into the port. Before I go much further, it's an important thing to know that Port Everglades is a federal government-owned port. This is not just a cruise port where cruise ships come in and out. This is a port where the federal government conducts business, and there's also ships that come in that are much different from just cruise ships. So in order to get into the port of Port Everglades, you do have to show some form of ID, a passport or a driver's license. We have gone to Port Everglades many, many times. We know the drill. We completely understand this, but not everyone else does. Okay, so let's jump back into the story. So we're getting ready to get on Odyssey of the Seas. We're standing outside our hotel room waiting for our car to pick us up. The car pulls up, we load in our luggage, and off we go to Port Everglades. As we pull up to Port Everglades, Jared and I pull out our passports. Like I said, we know the drill. You have to show your ID. For rideshare app drivers, they also have to show that they're a legitimate driver that works for that app. So they'll have to open up their app and show a document that is given to them from the rideshare app with all of their information on it. In addition to that, they must also show their ID. Little did we know, it was our driver's first day on the job, and he was not aware of these requirements. So we pull up, an officer asks us to roll down the windows. Jared and I put our passports up and show them, but our driver doesn't actually have any idea what to do. The officer did walk him through pulling up his app and showing him, that he was a legitimate driver and he was employed. So we saw that, and then he said, okay, I also need your driver's license. Our driver did not know very much English and didn't really understand what was going on. And I'll get into that here in just a little bit. But long story short, he didn't have his driver's license. The security officer gets a sheriff. The sheriff asks us to pull the car through the gate and around and wait. We're sitting there, we're waiting, we're not really sure what's happening. About 20 minutes goes by. The sheriff rolls up and says, I need to see your driver's license and you're gonna have to produce it. Otherwise, we're gonna have a problem here. Jared and I are sitting in the back and we're just thinking like, oh my gosh, what is going on? What's happening? The guy already showed that he did work for the rideshare app. So shouldn't that be enough? Unfortunately, it wasn't. This poor man, we learned, had actually just gotten to the US, had just immigrated to the US, did have a driver's license, but it was actually at his house. The sheriff was unfortunately not buying that story. He immediately started holding us. We sat there for probably another 30 minutes. Another 30 minutes goes by and he says, okay, I'm gonna let you call someone who might know where your ID is so that they can take a picture of it and show me. He calls his spouse. His spouse is looking, and I can hear on the other end of the phone, she's frantic, he is frantic. I felt so bad for these people because they had just gotten here. They were new to the United States, and he was just trying to make a living by working for this ride-sharing app, and he didn't actually know the protocols of what he needed to do to get into the port. We didn't know what was happening. An hour goes by, we're still sitting there being held. Now, keep in mind, we could not order another car from a different ride-sharing app. They were just making us sit there and wait this out while the ID was produced. The worst part about this was the sheriff was actually a little bit, you could tell he was annoyed, but he was also very, very rude with all of us. Was not happy that this gentleman, was driving and didn't understand or know the protocols. That made Jared and I really uncomfortable because at the end of the day, it was just a driver's license that we were looking for here, and there was no other shady business going on. Finally, after about 90 minutes, this man's poor wife found his brand new driver's license that he had just gotten, took a picture, sent it to him, showed the sheriff. It didn't end there. The sheriff then said, okay, I have to run all of this information to make sure it's a legitimate ID. Then that took another 25 minutes. By the time this was said and done, we had been in this car for a very, very long time, and we were actually at risk of potentially missing the ship. The sheriff ran all the information. It came back completely fine. This poor guy was 100% legitimate. And he said, all right, you guys are good to go. You can go ahead and take them to the ship. I just want to talk about this situation because how many people in a year cruise out of Port Everglades and take a rideshare vehicle to the port? I know Jared and I do at least 10 times. We have now implemented another step in getting to the port. And if we do use a rideshare app, we always ask the rideshare driver if they have their driver's license on them. Now, obviously, this is something that you should have on you if you're driving in general. You should not be driving without your driver's license. And a lot of times rideshare drivers will look at us and be like, of course I have my driver's license. What are you talking about? But it is just very important because we almost missed our cruise and it was nothing that we did wrong. It was actually the same steps that we have taken over and over and over again to get into Port Everglades and to get onto the ship. If you are cruising out of Port Everglades in the future, we would just warn you that if you are using a rideshare app, just ask your driver, hey, you got your license on you? Are we good to go into the port? Because if they don't, you could get held up into a giant mess like we experienced right there at the port. It turned into such a long ordeal. I felt bad for the driver because ultimately, in my opinion, the rideshare app should be giving the proper tools and training to the drivers to where they should know and understand what they need to do to get into the port or into federal areas. Maybe they do this and maybe the driver missed it. That could totally be a possibility. I've never worked as a rideshare driver myself. If you have, please let us know in the comments. I'm interested to know what you think of this situation. Would you have been stressed out? Would you have been just as stressed out as Jared and I if you were put in this situation? What are your thoughts? Comment below and let us know. I hope that you found this helpful and informational. Of course, there's other ports like Port of Miami where you just drive on up to the ship and it's no big deal. But Port Everglades, be warned. This is something that could happen to you in the future, and it's something that was honestly just a simple mistake by our driver. Well, thank you so much for watching today. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like this video. And until next time, see ya.